والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Today, inshallah, we will continue with our series of the Quranic miracles. I want to share a short example from the fourth juz of the Quran. This is Surah Al-Imran, chapter number 3, verse number 117. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مثل ما ينفقون في هذه الحياة الدنيا كمثل ريح فيها سر أصابت حرث قوم ظلموا أنفسهم فأهلكت وما ظلمهم الله ولكن أنفسهم يظلمون. So to give some context to this verse, this is addressing the Makkans of that time. This occurs at a time following the Battle of Badr. So as we know, the Battle of Badr was a battle that was won by the Muslims. And this defeat at the hands of the Muslims, it enraged and humiliated the Makkans so much that they immediately thought of ways to retaliate against the Muslims and to wage another campaign of war against them. So one of the ways that they did that was by spending in that cause. So basically what a lot of the people were doing was that they were giving their own money to compile it together to basically have the funding and the resources to wage another campaign of war against the Muslims to retaliate against the loss that they faced in the Battle of Badr. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse is addressing that spending, that what they do, and He gives a parable to compare it, to see what it actually is, what it is comparable to, what they're spending. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, مَثَلُ مَا يُنْفِقُونَ فِي هَذِهِ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا, that the parable of what they spend in this worldly life, for that cause to attack the Muslims, كَمَثَلِ رِيحٍ فِيهَا سَرٌّ أَصَابَتْ حَرْثَ قَوْمٍ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ فَأَهْلَكَتْ. It's similar to a cold, frosty wind that strikes the harvest of a people, right? So this wind, it's a cold and a frosty wind that strikes the harvest of a people, ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, a people that have wronged themselves, addressing the Makkans, فَأَهْلَكَتْ, and this wind strikes that harvest and it completely and violently destroys it. وَمَا ظَلَمَهُمُ اللَّهُ وَلَكِنْ أَنفُسَهُمْ يَظْلِمُونَ. Allah says that Allah did not wrong them, but rather they wronged themselves. So what this verse is actually saying is that whatever they're spending in this cause to attack the Muslims, it actually has no benefit for them in this life. Rather, it is doing harm to them because it's similar to a frosty wind that strikes a crop and completely destroys it. So now let's take a step back and think about, what this verse is actually saying and who it was revealed to and at what time. So this was revealed to the Arabs 1400 years ago. And what kind of an environment were they in? They were in the barren, arid environment of the desert where it was so hot, right? That, it was even hard for vegetation to grow. So you can ask yourself, what do the Arabs know about frosty wind destroying crops? That's not the environment that they're in. They have no idea that frost can even destroy crops. But what we know from today's scientific discoveries is that when the water inside of the cells of the plant, it reaches a certain temperature, a freezing point, for example, this is called frost damage. And what actually happens is that when the water starts to freeze inside of the cells of the plant, the water begins to expand and it puts immense pressure on the cells, and it actually causes the cells to rupture and completely burst. And it is very similar to how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described it when He said, فَأَهْلَكَتْ. It causes a violent destruction, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving this verse at a time to a people who know nothing about, what frost damage is, because they're not in that surrounding. Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes it so accurately, and it is something for us to think about. How could this have come from a people, for the people that claim that the Quran was written by a man or by, a poet or whatever, of things of that sort? How could it have come from a people like that who didn't even know what frost was, who had no experience of what frost damage was? But today, in the context of modern day society, we understand exactly what this means. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accurately predicted that and portrayed that 1400 years ago in the Quran. So that was the message from today's short example. Inshallah, it will be a benefit. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He allow us to continue to ponder and reflect upon the verses of the Quran, and He open our eyes to what the actual meaning of the Quran is, and He embed it inside of our hearts and increase our iman as a result of it. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.